Does the famous Duggar family of 19 kids and counting really believe that men own women? Basically, that wives and children are the slaves of the men in the home. This is what I've heard several critics claim is a teaching of the Institute in Basic Life Principles, the Christian organization the Duggar family follows.
When the show first premiered, I instantly recognized their belief pattern as my own. My first thought was, oh my God, are they really going to show America what my life is like? What's America going to say when they find out how these people live?
One of the examples that is often used by IBLP critics to solidify this concept as slavery or ownership is that fathers give away the daughters in the wedding ceremony. How can you give away someone if you don't own them? Here's another example in Shiny Happy People how they claim IBLP promotes ownership of women.
I first read The Handmaid's Tale in college. I was like, oh, this is my life. What was going on with me and my father around that time period was a power struggle over, whether or not he considered me to be an adult or somebody like totally under his authority.
Since the claim of slavery is often made using the wedding ceremony to solidify the critic's point, I decided to look at a booklet that IBLP puts out entitled The True Significance of the Wedding Covenant, which had all the details of wedding traditions and their original meanings. I thought clearly if the meaning in IBLP teaching is that the father giving away the daughter was about ownership, this book would certainly point that out. We had this booklet in our shelf for years, so I went to find it and read it over again. When I first started reading this booklet, I found it to be possibly problematic in regards to this claim, because on page 7, it starts to reveal the ancient traditions of the groom paying a price for the bride. It even says it was a purchase price. That certainly does sound like a slave purchase, I have to admit. But context matters. Without context, this seemed to confirm the critics. But since context matters, I read on. I found that this whole section was showing step by step the correlation between how the wedding ceremony mirrors how Christ bought us for a price and paid for us with his sacrifice. So if that is the comparison and the context here, this would mean that the man is giving a sacrifice for the woman, as in Christ paid the sacrifice for our sin. In this context, this is saying a man has to give of himself to obtain the lifetime benefit of his bride, who is valuable as Christ shows the value of our souls with his sacrifice for us. Reading on, I found on page 12 this question. Why does the minister ask the question, who gives this woman to be married to this man? That seems to be the very crux of the critic's point, I thought. Here's the answer given. This question and its response symbolize not only the full blessing of the parents, but also the transfer of responsibility to the groom by the father. Not ownership, but responsibility. So it looks like IBLP teaching isn't about ownership, but about taking on responsibility. It's about the groom taking on the responsibility to provide and protect this precious woman, the daughter who's been protected and cared for all her life by her father. So the father is giving away the responsibility. He is basically transferring the leadership role as the leader in her home that she grew up in to her husband. The father will no longer be responsible for her provision and protection. Now the husband will be responsible for that. This is not about ownership or slavery. And I think that fits into their teaching that a man is to be the leader in the home, which would include having authority to make decisions that would need to be made in that leadership role. You cannot have responsibility without having authority to make decisions. Those two things just naturally go together. Then I looked at this clip where this very concept is explained in Shiny Happy People, although with an ominous intent.
We're having the wedding today.
The way God ordained it all, Josh becomes the authority at the wedding. He becomes her authority, not me. And that's the way God designed the transfer of authority.
Women cannot be in authority over themselves. They have to have a male authority figure over them. The idea is that you're under the total authority of your father until he transfers that authority over to your husband on your wedding day.
But couldn't this all be interpreted as a man is now in charge and could be a dictator in the home and treat his wife and children as slaves? As I pointed out in other videos, the IBLP Men's Manual makes very clear their teaching on what a man is supposed to do in regards to the treatment and care of his family, both his wife and his children. The first instructions in Volume 1 of the IBLP Men's Manual say to read Section 5 first. This section is entitled, Be Kind and Loving in All You Do. It asks, how can I learn to be gentle in the way I treat my wife and family? How can I learn to have genuine love for each one in my family? Here's some other things written in this section. Learn how to be kind and loving in your leadership responsibilities. A father must have a genuine spirit of humility. A father must learn to control his tongue and his emotions. A father must have good manners. A father must earn the right to be heard. It goes on and on. There isn't one indication anywhere in Volume 1 of IBLP Men's Manual that a man is to think of or treat his wife as a slave and that he is their owner. The only thing it expresses is how to take on a kind and loving leadership role with humility. So I looked in Volume 2 of the Men's Manual, which is mostly about how to be financially responsible. It has an entire section on listening to your wife and how important it is to realize that she has wisdom and insight that often the husband lacks, and he should pay great attention to her opinions. This section says things like, listening requires a servant's heart. The primary result of not listening to wise counsel from your wife is financial loss. And here's what Bill Gothard said in the basic seminar in regards to this.
Also, though, too, men, and we'll get to this, oftentimes God will give your wife cautions, especially in business, that he won't give you. And it's very important for you to get counsel from your wife to find out what God's saying to her before you make a major decision. And he won't tell you, but he will tell. So that's why God brings the husband and wife together. They each need each other. And by the way, men, please, again, listen to the counsel of your wife, especially when it comes to business decisions. Any number of men that I know would be here to confirm that if they only would have listened to the caution of their wife regarding a business decision, a situation of taking somebody into the business, or of buying a certain business or something else, you would have saved yourself thousands of dollars, tens of thousands or whatever, and saved yourself all kinds of trouble. And again, God will give your wife a caution he won't give you, because he wants you to appreciate your wife and know that he's put you two together as one. And you need her just as much as she needs you. So you better listen to that caution.
Do all these teachings sound like a man is an owner and the wife is a slave? Or does it sound like he is supposed to be a humble and kind leader in his home? It is very clear that IBLP does not teach that men own women. This is just another false narrative among many, many others. Next time, does IBLP teach legalism? This is a very common complaint among Christian critics of the Duggars and IBLP. We'll look into that next time. Thank you for watching, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe.